Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 221, and we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark. But before that, I just want to make a little announcement that I did an interview with the Wohlwend family, a family that I met at the Ron Paul conference down in Washington, D.C. at the end of August. Uh, for some odd reason, they thought I would be good to interview for their podcast. And although they focus more on real estate and trying to have financial freedom by, real estate investments, and he's done very well. So the episode that I did with them is up on www.clearskytrainer.com. That's ClearSkyTrainer.com. I'll put the link on the description, uh, but I'll probably say DOT instead of putting the little dot so that it doesn't run afoul of any kind of algorithm. But yeah, so there, my name is in the title. It's about the sixth episode down. It's October 15th, came out a couple days ago, and so it's the sixth episode down. And not only does it have my name, which I won't say here, but also included in the title is Anarco-Capitalism and Race Theory. So you can just simply do a search and that'll take you right to that episode. And there I talk about my family. So something very different from the content of this podcast. But if you were interested, then you can check that out. All right, so let's get to Caitlin Clark, who plays for the WNBA, and now she's going to Europe. So I don't really follow the WNBA. I don't really follow basketball. I don't really follow professional sports. And that's mostly because it's very frustrating for me to have to watch people lose and there's nothing you can do about it. So winning is awesome. Okay, fine. But losing, not so much. I mean, I don't mind losing myself. I like to think that I'm a gracious loser, but it's because I'm in control. I'm doing the best I can and I'm still losing. Oh, well. But if other people that I'm rooting for are losing, it just becomes very frustrating. And I don't like how I feel when that happens. And so I just simply don't watch professional sports in general. But I do appreciate clips, right? Watching certain plays, certain gameplay, and every once in a while I'll watch it if everyone else is watching it as well. And so I've seen Caitlin Clark playing over the last couple of years, few years, when she was coming out of college, and then her rookie season here in the WNBA. And so, there are clips that are constantly being uploaded, and they're fun to watch, right? She clearly is talented. She's really quick. She's got ball handling skills. She can shoot. She can pass. She can rebound. And she's got good movement, not only with the ball, but off ball as well. So there was a lot of hype about her. I remember I don't even really follow sports, but you couldn't get away from the Caitlin Clark hype. And at the conclusion of the WNBA season, regular season, she was named Rookie of the Year amid some controversy as well, right? So she would have gotten all of the votes for Rookie of the Year, but there was one vote who voted for someone else. And there's a story behind that as well, but I won't get into it. But there are also a lot of clips of her being roughed up, right? So, I don't understand all of the fouling that happens. And, but I do know that more often than not, a slight touch is called as a foul, right? So obviously there are the more rougher, more physical fouling, but there's also very subtle ones. And I know that it doesn't even look like something serious, but yet it's called a foul. Now, keeping in mind that I played lacrosse and checking, physically trying to put someone on the ground is totally legal. And so the slight touching that you see in basketball is just, or even soccer, where they don't even really touch each other, but there's penalties. It's just kind of it's kind of hard to get used to, but it's obvious that there are refs who don't call fouls on players who are roughing up Caitlin Clark. So the refs aren't don't seem to be protecting her. The league's not protecting her. So on a certain level, I guess it's kind of blatant. Like a lot of other people who follow sports, they're like, well, okay, that clearly was a foul, but it's not called. What's going on? So it's not just the other teams that are sort of uh, dead set on, co- preventing her from succeeding or doing well, maybe even harming her. But the refs are seems to be in on it as well. And if the refs are in it, then the league is in on it too. Now, keeping in mind that the league is essentially it is a corporation. So basically, all of the corporation is mistreating one of its employees, right? The players are employees. And on top of that, she was snubbed for the Olympics last year, right? And the coach, I remember just reading and just glancing at the titles that they didn't want her. She's too young. She doesn't have experience. But it's kind of weird because I know that in the past that never really is an issue. And I think even last year, there were other players who were rookies but were on the team. So there's a lot of speculation that it's because she's white, right? So she's not African American, she's not Chinese, but she's white, and that's why she's being mistreated. So clearly, if you're going to go down that road, then we're talking about racism. Keeping in mind that among the race theories that are out there taught by university professors, that some people believe that it's impossible to be racist against white people. And the reason is because all of history is pro-white, white-centered, and so they have too much power, too much influence, too much privilege to be a victim of racism, and they kind of leave it at that. So it's okay to do the things against white people which otherwise are illegal or frowned upon if you did it against someone of color. Okay, so maybe that's what a lot of people are thinking, that it's not racism because she's white. Perhaps one might say that they're really jealous because of her skill. Hmm. So is it that they're trashing on her because she's really not that good? Or they're jealous because she is legit that good? Or maybe Caitlin Clark herself is just a big baby. Maybe she's spoiled. Maybe she's just a big whiner. Or maybe she has a legitimate claim, right? So this can easily go down the road of subjectivity, right? Well, that's your opinion, but this is really what's going on. That's what you see, but this is really what's going on, right? So if you take subjectivity seriously, then you realize that, especially for a person like me who doesn't follow the sport, it's like, okay, whatever, So she thinks that it might be, although I don't think she ever said it, but a lot of people believe that it's because of her color. A lot of people maybe would say she's really not that good. But if you're breaking a lot of the records in the WNBA and you are Rookie of the Year, and because your presence in the league has increased the viewership of the WNBA many times over, I mean, even I am watching basketball clips of Caitlin Clark. So maybe she is that good. Maybe she does have a legitimate case. But again, a lot of it is subjective, unless, of course, you are really into the sport. You're watching every minute of every game, and you're like, yeah, clearly the refs are putting the whistle away. Other teams seem to be lined up against her, et cetera, et cetera. So, how do you resolve this? How do you make a decision like, yeah, she is being mistreated. Uh, yeah, something must be done, How do you know? What would be the way to understand this, to sort it out? And the way you do this is that if she can find a better alternative, if she can find something else, an option where she is treated better, then it is highly likely that all of the people's suspicions are in fact true. So she gets an offer to play at a European Women's League, and I tried to find an article about it that just talked about it without some kind of introduction, but they're all behind all of these advertisement walls, and I just didn't feel like going down it. But let's just assume that there is a European Women's League, and they recruited her to play there for much more money. Totally different situation, different country, different rules, different atmosphere, different style of play. Okay, fine. But a lot more money. So if that indeed happened, then it is more likely than not, in fact, highly likely that she was, in fact, being mistreated at in the league. Was it because of her skin color? Well, that would be interesting, right? Because it probably is not because of her skill. It's not because of her gameplay. It's not because of her attitude. It's not her sportsmanship or anything like that. So what's left? The college that she went to? They don't like the college that she attended? I don't know. So there's not a whole lot that you can say. Maybe she's a closet locker room abuser of other players. I don't know. Unlikely though. So that's how you can tell if the one person who is complaining, saying that she's being mistreated, if it's legitimate, then she can get and secure a better offer someplace else. And in the process, punish the very people who have been given a hard time and did nothing to address all of the problems that were coming up in the league during the gameplay, on and off the court, etc. So this is a perfect example. So Caitlin Clark is the perfect example of bad discrimination, right? Discrimination that is being conducted on traits or characteristics which have nothing to do with the job. That's playing basketball, right? So they're not mistreating her because she's awful. She doesn't belong in the league. They're not mistreating her because she's rude and bad mouthing everyone. They're not mistreating her because she, is injuring a lot of other players because of her play. No, they are discriminating against her because not only is she really, really good, but she is more likely than not the wrong color, right? It seems kind of obvious because the player that they wanted to be the star of the WNBA is not white. And I'm not going to say her name only because there's a controversy around her as well. So on the one hand, they wanted her to be Angel Reese, to be the star of the WNBA, but her team loses a lot. And it turns out that she was also, you know, ex you know, dabbling in uh, steroids, also was blood doping, right? Which is basically cheating, right? As determined by the WNBA. And so she was kicked off the team and the coach was let go as well because it's suspected that the coach was the one who was encouraging her to do that in answer to the pressure that was being put on them. That's not a good situation, right? So bad discrimination, right? So looking at someone and discriminating for or against that person for irrelevant characteristics, for, things that have nothing to do with the sport itself, that leads to bad decisions and choices. And for that, there is always punishment. So in a financial realm, if you're a department store and you make a bad choice, then you lose business, right? You lose customers, or no one likes the products that you're going to sell, right? You're selling products that break too easily, whatever. There are repercussions, and that business loses lots of money. Now, because this is more of a team corporation. So if the player who is your marquee player who is bringing in hundreds of thousands of more viewers to your games, um, well, you maybe you should treat that player well And if you mistreat them, right? So if we're in a corporate world and instead of giving people raises, you cut their salaries, right? You mistreat them, you extend the number of hours that they have to work, you cut back on their sick days and their vacation days, right? Uh, no matter how hard you work, no matter how good of a job that you do, well, can you get another job offer from another company? If the answer is no, then your company is not mistreating you. You just are a bad worker. And so we come back to the WNBA example. If they're mistreating her for, something which is related to the game itself and her gameplay or just her personality, then maybe one might be able to justify, although it's not, right? Because it's not fair on the court. So one might try to justify the treatment that she got. But the fact that she was able to get a job offer from another league in a different continent kind of shows you, okay, it was bad discrimination. It was mistreating her on based on characteristics which have nothing to do with the sport itself. So we can see through this example, and I've mentioned it before in other episodes, that this tells you that there's no need for laws and regulations to prohibit companies from how they treat their workers, right? So if you can imagine a law saying, you shall not discriminate against a player for the color of their skin. But we already have laws like that in the country. And here we see it happening right before our eyes. So we don't need that kind of regulation because it fails anyway, right? All you need to do is allow for freedom for people to be able to exercise a different choice. And in this case, it's a women's basketball league in a different continent, right? For more money. And so she can just basically vote with her feet, literally. So she doesn't like her situation now. She gets a better offer and then she jumps ship. It might be true that it's just a rumor that she's going to New York, to a different job in Europe. Huh. But it might be true. And if it is true, and I hope it's true, then there you have it. A single player or a single employee of a large corporation, subsidized as it is, loses its marquee player and therefore loses a large amount of revenue that she brought to that business. And then she's going to take a lot of it with her to Europe. Right. And so clearly we don't need laws. It's just the freedom of choice punishes companies which practice bad discrimination and therefore rewards companies for positive discrimination, for discrimination for the characteristics that are required for the job. Right. And we've talked about this before, but let's just say you don't like hiring women, so you only hire men, but you can hire more women for the price of what men are generally expecting to be paid. So you have many more workers cranking out product, which means you are going to be cheaper. And in the long run, the company that only hires women will be the only business left in business, left open, and the businesses which hire only men disappear and you never knew they even existed. And so because business owners don't want to lose all their money, what they do is they fire all the men and hire only women as well, which forces men then to look for jobs which most women would refuse to do, like sewer work. And we talked about this in other episodes as well. So again, there are no need for laws. Here's another example. A few years ago, the big controversy in the Academy Awards, right? The Hollywood, self-aggrandizement awards, the Academy Awards. Someone said, hey, there are not enough Asian award winners, right? And hey, why aren't there movies like serious dramas which have an Asian lead, right? Where the star of the movie is an Asian. Well, I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, whoa, there are actually examples where Asians are the lead, but they're comedy, or that's a martial arts movie, or, something like this. You'll think of a reason. So you're like, so we need more Asians. as the star of the movie, etc. And I said, well, that's not really a problem. You can just go to Asia. And in Asia, all of the actors, nearly all of the actors are Asian, and all of the people who win awards are pretty much Asian. And people get kind of, you can see their face change and say, well, no, no, we're talking about Hollywood. And there it is, right? People want an Academy Award. They don't want the Best in Asia Award, whatever it is that they do over there, right? They want an Academy Award because that's what means something. Yeah, well, so now it becomes clear you're not really upset that Asians aren't winning awards. You're just upset they're not winning Academy Awards. But that's to say that Hollywood and the Academy Awards are in fact the best. And for a while there, people, Hollywood movies weren't all that great. So what am I trying to say? Like, if you really wanted something like awards for Asian actors, well, there are plenty of them in Asia, right? And maybe you'll get one here, but it won't be because you're Asian. It'll be because your acting is that good. Just like Sidney Poitier was African American and won an Academy Award in, I believe, the 60s, right? So Asians should be able to do it as well. All right. And so it's not about, oh, there ought to be a law or we got to force people to change. No, you just have to get people to start discriminating in a good way for the appropriate characteristics that are required for the job or the situation to perform the task, to complete the task. And as soon as you deviate from that, you're going to have injustice. You're going to have a society that is steadily becoming more and more poor, deeper into poverty, and the problem just gets worse. So just give people freedom. And with the freedom, they will work everything out. Just like Caitlin Clark went to Europe and left the NBA in her rearview mirror. So most people will be able to do the very same as long as they have freedom. That's it for this episode. I will talk to you next time.